Hello, welcome back to my cake kitchen. I'm Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. For this cake that is over here, I would say it's another day and another scrap cake to turn into a tutorial giving you handy lessons to take with you. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, good day, wherever you are. Over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. I should start by saying we were meant to be back earlier. The lives are normally scheduled for 1 p.m. UK time, which is a little early for some of my American audiences and some audiences around the world. Probably the most convenient, but in the UK it's in some parts there is their school break, so I have other commitments that has necessitated a rescheduling of our lives. So I'm going to try and commit to it. Hopefully, if I have a little time on my hands, I will be here a little earlier where possible. The lives are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, where they continue from 1 p.m. UK time to any time after 2. It's normally I try to stay within the hours limit or maximum an hour and a half. So it's between 1 and 3 p.m. We start at 1, but for today we're starting at 3 p.m. and hopefully it should stay the same for this week, and then next week we are back to our regular scheduling. But if you keep in touch with us on the community post, you will know that I keep you updated as best as possible on necessary changes, and where possible I'll keep you updated. So thank you for your patience. For the lovely Tapita, good morning, and Lollipop, good afternoon. How are you all? So what are we doing today? Well, normally I like to spring a little bit of a surprise, and the surprise here is that if you've been on the channel, we made a flower vase cake, which was very beginner friendly. I employed every technique to ensure that that flower vase was simply a beginner friendly one. But I also wanted to give everybody the choice to have a different version of the flower vase cake, if you like. So from the flower vase cake, we made the floral bouquet, which was super beginner friendly, and we came face to face with the challenges that one is likely to face undertaking those. I think there's a lot of practice sessions to undertake so that we can master the art of making that bouquet. But I was excited to bring you that bouquet. So we are back on the floral sort of gift themed cakes, and that is because if there is one option that you feel like it's going to be tricky to you, I want to be able to give you a different option to undertake the task, if you like. So we are going to be making what you call a traditional flower pot. Just to give you some sort of visual representation of those, I have posted some varieties on the community post, just so that you can visualize. The thing with creating sort of carved cakes is that sometimes even with a visual, things do change. So a photo or a representation is sort of a guideline for me to follow. So posting the photo also gives you an idea of what I am aiming to achieve. But there are different variations of the flower pot. So when you see the photo, do leave a comment on what your favorite is, and let's see if we can aim for that. There are three versions. Normally, if you see the flower pot, what I'm talking about, it's sort of a dark red orangey pot that is potted. It's a potted flower pot, and sometimes the flower is sort of green sitting in it, and then you have the soil. So my goal is to be able to carve this cake into a sort of flower pot of that size, fairly smaller than the one we did first, and then we will create the cake with the soil, just so that I can employ different techniques to bring you a different option of what one can undertake. Now I'm wondering if it's best to make the flower pot ganache or fondant. I don't know yet until we get to carving it. Of course, if I had to undertake this task ready before coming onto the live, I'll be able to give you a clear representation of what we are likely to achieve in exact thoughts. I'm not able to do that now, and that is simply because normally when I undertake this task, it is also showing me in my authentic light, in that I haven't done this before. The only advantage I have here is that I am a cake artist, and so I try, and after 10 years of making cakes. I do have a certain level of skill that lends to what I am trying to achieve, but failing that, I do not want to enhance my advantages anymore beyond what I am trying to teach. Because if you've been here before, the goal here is to inspire complete beginners and intermediate cake makers who are looking to undertake some form of cake lessons and artistry, so that this becomes a learning resource for you. And with that said, if you're in the chat and you're just joining us and you find some value in this video, do consider liking the video. Join the community here. We are a positive bunch here. We encourage each other. We keep the conversations going around cake, generally about life, and occasionally do stop for a laugh now and again. So do catch up on the lives that are already up. Check the video format itself to see some of the vlog chat videos we have, and anything else between shorts and the community post. And with that, I say thank you for being here. Let's jump right in. Now, the thing about carved cake is that when you want to create a carved cake, you would have had to put a little bit of thought into what you're doing, from printing the image that you want to create to having a scale of what the sizing is. I have none of those, simply because the cake is already put together. This is actually a cake that I created on a live here, showing you some piping techniques. So I am taking a cake that I made here and then turning it into something completely different. And like I said, I don't want to enhance my advantages anymore beyond what I already have. So I have nothing except an idea in my mind, hoping that we can create this cake. For that reason, this is a 6-in-4 layered cake. So we are going to start with taking off the buttercream on this cake. And whilst we're at it, because you get to have a say in what we do vote your thoughts on other tutorials that you would like to see. I'm sticking with the floral themes here because I am trying to give you a few bits of options here. That said, if you're new to the chat, hello there. So for this cake, what I am going to try and do is get myself a turntable, and as usual, I didn't boil my kettle. I'm going to boil a kettle of hot water, and then I'm going to dip my knife in that. So if you hear some ASMR sound over there, bear with me, and that is simply because I'm boiling a kettle over here. That said, for those of you in the chat, hello, Maria, hi, Holes, is it Holes? Holes, hi there. Tapita, oh, Tapita, you, did I miss something? Tapita is talking to me. I'm doing, yes, yeah. Tapita, don't try to invite God back in the chat like you did for the, is my kettle boiling? No, I haven't plugged my kettle in. Nothing is happening. Right? Yes, Tapita, the French tips. Shall I say, Tapita, when you asked about French tips, I thought you were talking about my fingers. I'm like, no. Yes, these are the French tips. Yes, if that's what you're asking. These are French tips, yeah? And Chronicles of... Chronicles, good morning. Thank you, Chronicles. Thanks for being here today with us. You're welcome. Thank you. If you're just joining us and you're wondering what we're doing, we are trying to make... We're trying to make a flower pot, as in a potted flower cake from this one over here. Oh, Tapita, you vote for using ganache. Is that the case? Tapita. Oh God, aren't you hilarious, right? So this was a tutorial we created on here. So you can find it on the live session of the videos. So I will encourage you to go check that out. in the meantime, I am just taking out the buttercream here. And this cake has been kept in the fridge for a little while now. So all I am trying to do is take out the buttercream. And if you're in the chat, of course, you want to undertake a carved cake, it goes without saying that you obviously would have had to learn the basics of cake making. And I have videos covering the subject of how to get your cake filled and stacked correctly before even getting to this point. Okay, so do check some of those videos out. Okay, Tapeta, you would want this cake to be a sort of ganache cake. I think for what we are aiming for, we could do ganache and a hybrid of ganache and buttercream. I said buttercream, ganache and fondant, and I'll tell you where the fondant will come in, but it's only a little bit, because yes, I do like to undertake the complete ganache versions, and that is because it's completely beginner friendly. You can mold stuff, you can do it your own and all of that stuff. Oh God, look at what I have done. I have spilled the water. I didn't need all of that water, Glad. That was such a mess. Okay, now I need a bowl to contain this all together. Yeah, right. Romulo. Yes, is it Romulo? Yeah, Romulo. I make cakes. It's a cake channel, just in case you didn't know. So I made this cake on a live, and now I am taking it apart because I am trying to achieve something completely different with it. Right? Producers, where are you headed, guys?
We just headed for a little walk and talk. And Daddy can do a vapor and Rio can get some fresh air.
Okay. Have fun.
Come on, buddy. Good boy.
Right, so we are taking off. We are not carving the cake yet. For us to be able to carve the cake, we have to take off all the buttercream on the cake first before we do anything. So my little senses are telling me I could actually adapt this slightly, color the buttercream and use that instead of ganache. I don't know. Ganache is very versatile in what it can achieve, so perhaps I may consider this, but right now let's just take off the buttercream first, and then I will decide on whether I want to turn this buttercream into the medium for covering this cake. Let's see. If you're in the chat trying to talk to me, I might be a little bit, I know. Yeah, the producer and his little guy are taking a nice walk today because little guy has been a little bit handsy. Like he's the reason why I changed my scheduling today, because when the kids are home you want to be able to kind of like engage with them a little bit. So it's been a little bit of a different morning, but hey, I'm not complaining. There you go. This is actually a chocolate cake as well. Now at this point I want to be very careful so I don't take any more than I need from this cake. The reason being, this particular cake we are going to carve is going to take a certain form, and I do not want to lose any more cake than I need, just so that I can achieve what I need to do, right? So we are taking this off slowly. Who has seen the visual of the that I have already, the photos I have already posted on the community post? Okay, so we are aiming to get the cake clean, and the water I am dipping the knife into is warm water, just so that the blade is warm enough. And if you find that I am concentrating over here and can't keep up in the chat, forgive me, okay? I can't do both because I have to keep an eye on what is happening here just so that I can get some good results from that. Right. All the details on this particular cake I am carving here and what we did with it before now, it's all up on the channel. You'll find we made some piping decorations from that. There you go. Right. I kind of feel like the chocolate cake is also very appropriate because we're making a pot of plant that is going to have some dark soil, right? So there we are. Okay. Right. Okay. It's a lot of work. If you're in the chat, can you let us know where you're joining us from? Lollipop, I know what you ate for dinner yesterday. Right. I tell you the story about this cake itself. I say it's scrap cake, but it really isn't scrap cake as you will think. It's actually a cake I made. It was for a customer, but for some reason my heart wasn't settled on it. So last minute I decided that I didn't want to give this to the customer, and then I spent all night baking a whole new cake for them, and then I kept this cake. And there it is. Gosh, right. I'm also thinking, what other cakes would you like to see next? I know St. Patrick's Day is coming. Tapeta, that is you. And there is Mother's Day on the horizon very soon. If you would like to see some more cakes, let me see by show by hands what you would like to see, and I'm sure I'll be happy to honor that. Some people from the other video streaming times suggested is it the burnt cake, the Taylor Swift thing where you burn the cake to reveal, the burn and reveal sort of thing. I don't like those cakes very much because of safety reasons, but hey, I am not mad. I am here to serve you. So if you want to see some of those cakes, let me know what you think. Yeah, if you want to see the burn and reveal sort of cake, I am not mad. Always, I say, when you are carving a cake or creating a sculptured cake, one good tip is to start small. It is always better to take a little portion out than to take chunky bits, because if you take more of the cake, you can't put it back well, unless you have the technique of creating what you call mashed cake with your buttercream and then fixing it. But you're better off not trying to fix things, especially if you're a beginner. I mean, if I wanted to fill a cake right now, like if there was some part that I cut and there's a dip and I'm not sure, what I will do is mash some cake pieces, mix it with buttercream or ganache to form a paste, what you call the cake pop, cake pop mix, and then use that to fill the bits on it. But you are better off not having that problem to start with, if you like, right? So I will always encourage you to make sure, one good tip for carving a cake is to carve small and to take your time. The best results will take time, so take all the time you need. Leave yourself as much room as possible to get what you need done. Okay, So let's see, I am just aiming to get the shape out and to get the buttercream, much of it off, so that I can assess how to carve the cake for the shape I really desire. Because this is going to be a really small cake, because we have 6" here, and there isn't much here, especially in terms of the flower thingy pot we are aiming for. So there you have it. Okay. Okay. Right. I'm just going to clean the top a little bit. Oh, Lord Ron, you're back. Hello there. How are you? Lordy. Right. So that's our cake done. When I say we're done, we're not done with the cake, but we've carved much of the buttercream. That is all clean. The next thing is I'm going to wash my hands and clean my worktop. And then we'll be back to seeing if we can try and derive some of the shape out of this cake slightly. I'll leave Tabitha to keep the group going whilst I try and tidy my work surface a little bit. Please bear with me. Okay, there we are. Yeah, I'm feeling. The thing with doing carved cake is that you will see me dip in and out of screen a little bit. That is part of the commitment here, so bear with me. Right, so Tabitha said, I thought about this summer making a harvest basket shaped cake decorated with fresh berries. Okay. You know what, Tabitha? You go do that and tell us all about it. When it's summer here in England, can I tell you, I don't like to touch a cake because it's so hot. And we don't have ACs here. So right. Right, there we're back. So now that we've cleaned our cake, we want to go and start trying to see if we'll shape up the cake the way we want. If I had to bake this cake, I'll probably bake some 7 in 2 layers of 7, 2 layers of 6, and 2 layers of 5. By so doing, it will kind of build the shape for me to kind of carve, but I don't have that. So I'm going to have to be very, very particular and careful about how I shape this cake. And if you've seen the flower pot, you can see that it has a small bottom, and then it kind of goes all the way out, if you like. So that is what I am going to be aiming for. Sadly, I don't even have a visual of it. It's just the idea that is in my head. So I'm going to have to be careful with what I am doing here. But if you have any input here, hey, you're welcome, right? The other one was fairly simple to carve because the shape was really unknown and it gave me room to kind of make mistakes. Whereas this is very, very specific. So I cannot go dabbling and playing with it however I like, if you like. So let's get back to basics over here and see how I can get that sorted, right? Sometimes when you're carving a cake also about an item that is realistic, you want to leave yourself room for interpretation as well. Okay, so I know what the pot looks like if I were to carve it, but I also want to aim for something that is closer to the cake I am working with and not going for something super perfect, because I also have to remember this cake is meant to be beginner friendly. So it's something that requires very less skill, or there's room for sort of adaptation, if you like. So again, it's a boring, tedious task of just carving the surface of the cake little by little, and it doesn't seem like anything is happening, but believe me when I say a lot is happening, okay? Because the little slices of cake that I am carving off is eventually going to help me have a clean surface for my pot. And again, if you're carving a cake, you want to make sure that your cake is sort of firm. You don't want a very light textured spongy cake. It can be hard to achieve results from that. The reason being, a spongy textured cake is just going to crumble when you're working with it, unless perhaps you keep the cake frozen, so you're carving a frozen cake. That is great. That will be a good thing to do, but it also comes with some challenges, because when you have a frozen cake, it means trying to cut through it can be difficult unless you bring it back to room temperature a little bit so you can cut through it. So you have to learn to pick your battles here and there. But look at what we're doing. We're getting there slightly. We've got the side of the cake. Is that looking like a pot, flower pot? Can you see that coming through? If you can see it, let's see a thumbs up in the chat. And if you cannot see what we are doing here at all, and you think I'm just like making up stuff for you, check the community post for yourself and see if you can see the image of what we are aiming to do over here. Right. This is a good chocolate cake I could have eaten, right? And here is me doing something else with it. I am sort of, whilst I'm carving this, I'm also thinking about a burger cake. Some of those. The top of the cake isn't something I should be so concerned about, should I? Upstairs. Top of the cake. Yep. Tapeta, you can see the post when we are done. We won't be long. So let's see. We've only been at it for half an hour now. I think our lives are normally just a little over an hour or an hour. Anything between 50 minutes to, it's like our bake time, 50 minutes to an hour and a half. So depending on what I am looking to achieve, this could be shorter or longer than we need it. So here we are. I am just trying to get this because what I'm trying to do is just carve the pot so that we can just flip it upside down, and that's the shape of the flower pot essentially. Now let's clean the side of our cake. It doesn't look like anything just yet, but I can assure you, just trust the process, okay? If you see the photos, you'll find that the pot is a little more sort of angular this way. The only reason this is a little round is because the cake I have here is small and I don't want to carve out any more than necessary, because if I had a bigger cake, then I could get the shape out better. But a flower pot is a flower pot, so I'm not really mad at it. I'm just going to try and keep the features of the pot similar. What question did I ask that led to the hands up in the... I forgot. I have just been consumed. I can see some hands up, okay? Esley Open, right? Thank you for putting your... What are you putting your hand up for? I forgot, okay? I've just forgotten because it feels like I've been talking to myself literally in the kitchen, and I forgot what I asked that said, put your hands up in the chat. I remember saying something about a burger cake, did I? Okay. Okay. There you go. I kind of feel like I want to get this a little shape going a bit more. Oh, okay. What cakes you wanted to see, right? Yeah, so put your hands up and let us know what cakes you want to see. Like, or maybe you should let us know, right? Tell us in the chat what cakes. At the moment, I am only carving the flower themed cakes because they are sort of in season, if you like. You have Mother's Day, Valentine's just went past. We have Mother's Day coming and all that stuff. These cakes are just like super in tapita. These cakes are just appropriate for the season, and that's why I am just suggesting the flower ones. But you don't really have to settle for flower cakes. We have different ones. I mean, we could make burger cakes. I have actually wanted to make a burger cake for a long time. So, and then at the moment, I also have like shaped cakes in the fridge that can make a football themed cake. I have struggled with football cakes for a very long time because there are some tips that even as a pro, I had to learn along the way. So if you want to see those, just let us know. Yeah. Bunny cake for Easter, an Easter bunny. Okay, remember the cakes are supposed to be beginner friendly. So I think a woven basket with the Easter eggs might just be super beginner friendly than a bunny itself, unless we want a 2D bunny, because a 3D bunny requires a lot of, it has different aspects to it, and I wonder if it's going to be achievable at all. But I don't mind it. So let me go have a think and see what we can do. For St. Patrick's, I'm kind of thinking, can we have the, is it the pot, the black pot, and the green hat? I don't know. Just, yeah, whatever ideas you choose. It's not so much about me making the cakes. It's also about making it achievable for you. Okay? So, okay. I kind of feel like I am getting to the shape of the pot gradually. What do you think? If you kind of think you can see a pot here. Ah, okay. The flower pot, the beginning of the flower pot. Yeah, unfortunately, because I'm literally a one-person production, my producer and the little guy are busy at the moment, so I don't have the visual, but I posted a photo, like a sort of visual representation of what the flower cake is likely to look like. Like, they are not, the posts I made are not cakes, they are actually flower pots, but inspiration can be taken from anything, so you can check that on the community post. Yeah, please. So I am just trying to get the pot looking right, simply because once I flip it, I don't want to have to carve any aspects of it at all. If you can see, do you think you can see a flower pot in this shape here? Let's see. Because if you're creating a sculpted cake, the important thing is that the shape of the item has got to be seen even before you cover it. Because covering it just follows from the shape that you already have, if you like. There we are. I kind of feel like I don't want to do anything else until I flip it, and then I can tell if I've gotten what I need. Right, Amber. Amber, you have some questions for me. Amber, thank you, and welcome to the chat. Let me just finish here, and then I'll dedicate some time to the chat so that we can talk properly, okay? So for those of you who have questions for me and are trying to engage with me in the chat, please bear with me, okay? Okay, right. Okay, there we are. So I think this is likely to look like a potted plant, like a potted a pot of flower sort of cake, if you like, because this looks like a pot to me. I don't think I want to get this part slightly out of shape, if you like, but yes, that's the whole idea. So this is going to be covered to look like a pot. We'll have the sort of trim that goes on the lip of the pot. We'll have the flower in, and then we're hoping to create it so it's sitting on a bed of soil here and also on the top. So if you can see a pot here, just let me know. Okay, but I think I can see a pot here already. I just don't want to do anything more than it already is showing. I am hoping I can employ okay, Tabitha, passing some tips in the chat. Thank you. Right. Okay, so we have carved the cake already. Let me clear my worktop, talk to you about what I am looking at over here, and then I can engage in the chat a little more before we round up. Okay. There we are. Remember, this is a scrap cake. This is a cake I made and decided that I didn't need. We made it into a tutorial of a different cake, teaching you some piping techniques and piping methods. And then now we are turning the same cake into a pot, a potted plant, a potted flower, a flower pot, whatever that is. Okay, so carving a flower pot. We have already made a carved vase, flower vase with the flowers in it. So there we have it. We've got the pot. I'm going to wipe my work surface a little bit. I'm going to move the cake onto a different work surface. And then we will get to clearing up the mess that is here. The first time I did this and I tried to carve the cake, I used a plastic covering on the worktop. Today I didn't do that, and see, I have quite a bit of work to do clearing up my work surface. All right, we are done here, and if we bring our carved cake back into shot, this is what it looks like. Okay, so that is going to be the pot. If we cover it, I am aiming to go for the same dark brown or orange looking pot that we know, just because the sort of color tells a lot about the presentation we're going for. And I'm trying to think if we will aim for, say, some fresh flowers this time, just so that we have a way of deciding how to put the flowers, so you have alternative views of how flowers can be placed on a cake. Because the first one we did, we placed artificial flowers. Or this time, it's sort of, when I take up these challenges, I completely have no idea. I am working from a place of imagination. So maybe we might just end up with just a single flower in the pot, because the goal here is to showcase how to create the pot, how to bring the different sorts of element, be it the soil, and how to present it so it looks great and represents the item that we are looking to create in cake form. So this is not about the flowers itself, because if it's about the flowers, we covered all of that in the floral vase sort of cake that we made earlier. So you can check that for more details, except this one I'm just aiming to kind of narrow down the way to bring a shape to life whilst also maintaining the realistic aspects of it. So yeah, that is the goal here. So we're going to create the dark soil. We're going to create a mold of dark soil from Oreo cookies, and I'm going to employ different techniques to kind of showcase the goal here for you. So stick with us. If you haven't already subscribed, do consider subscribing to the channel. These tutorials are some sort of learning resources for you if you are a baker or decorator looking to advance in your skill, if you can't afford a few other things. So I hope that it is of some use to you. As I said, some of the tips for carving a cake: be very prepared, make sure you stay organized. As you can see, I don't have any specific professional standard tools. I do have a lot for other tasks, but for these tutorials I strip them back to achievable aspects where you can use a sharp kitchen knife. And the knife I used was a kitchen knife at home, which is sharpened. Dip it in hot water. So have a plan of what you are looking to do, more so have a picture of it. Of course, I don't have a picture here because I have sort of thought about this a lot, and I've been able to study a few pictures. And this is not my very first carved cake, and sometimes I beg to also say, being able to create these things, even though skill and practice will polish the art of what you're doing, sometimes it's a gift and a talent. I can dream something and imagine it and then come down to creating it. I remember creating my first turkey cake. I had no visual except what was mentally representative for me. And by the time I created the look, I was like, whoa. But it also, whilst I was thinking about what I had mentally, I was also able to study a few images, but I didn't specifically have an image in front of me which I was like obsessing over, because sometimes that can sort of narrow what I'm trying to create mentally. So if you ask any painter, sometimes the things they paint is registered mentally to them and it only makes sense, but I'm only trying to bring that out mentally just so that the tutorial sort of makes sense. And with that said, this is the pot we are going to create into a flower pot, sitting on some dark soil with some heaped dark soil on the top and a flower in it. But this is the first part of it done. Do come back and join us in the subsequent videos to come tomorrow and the day after when we finish this. In the meantime, let's go into the chat and then I'll make time to answer some of your questions in there, right? So all of you who are just joining me today, there's quite a bit of you. Soul Shine for Jesus Christ, hi there. I hope you're still here. She's still Chronicles, good morning. Romulo, good morning. Lollipop, okay, Lollipop was talking to Tapeta, so I missed a lot of that. Hello Holla. Thank you, nice cake. Tapeta, let's see. Right, Tapeta had wanted to see the post of the cake, but she didn't want to. You are okay. Who could see the cake? Okay, Soulshine, thank you for those. So I asked the question and then I forgot about my own question. Soulshine for Christ, thank you for that. Tapeta, are you scared of paying the £300? No, this is a fairly small cake and doesn't require that, so no, it may not be 300, but and I think this will be a lot less servings, because the other servings were, I think, 26 to 30 servings, which this, I think, a realistic serving guide will be about 15 servings to about 15 to 20 servings, so it will be a way less. So you're looking at nearly 200 to 225 pound mark for that by the time it is done, but we'll see. Okay. Oh dear. Lollipop, okay, Amber was asking how she can make this into a business. Amber, I will answer that for you. I am sure Tapeta did give you some tips. Tapeta did say you could start with friends, family, farmers market and that. Okay. A lot more confident. Okay, Amber, I will answer your question in a moment. Does the cake board have to be bigger than the cake? Okay. some questions. Okay, does the cake board have to be bigger than the cake? Not necessarily. It depends on what you want to achieve. I tend, because the cake board, okay, Amber, I'll answer your question in a moment. Let me answer this cake related question for Lollipop. The reason why a cake board for me is no, it first of all, it depends, because a cake sometimes does have a cake card, this one. And depending on, if say I was building a 3-tier cake, for instance, and the base is a 10, 8, 6. This is just a tangent, but bear with me. I'm just trying to sort of mentally register the question and answer it in a way that covers a few things and brings context. So for instance, let's the idea of cake boards and cake cards have to be defined in the cake making process, because for instance, for a cake, this is a cake card, right? Well, I think they are named differently, cake circles in the US, but these are cake cards. Call them cake boards, whatever, they are still cake cards. Cake boards are thicker, obviously. This is a cake card, this is a cake board, because this is harder. The card is card-ish. Hope it makes sense. And then the board is like a board, it's thicker and it's heavier. So cardboard, right? However, you can have the board as in card form, that you can have the board in this form that is still thick. So defining what the cake board and cake card is are two different things. But the board is also alternatively called a drum sometimes, which is this one. This one, that's a cake board, you will call it, but it's also called a cake drum, right? So when it comes to cake boards, cake cards, cake drums in cake making, the drums generally are known to be used primarily as display surfaces, because they are heavier, they are thicker, and they create a surface on which the cake is displayed. And that's the cake drum, i.e. cake board. It's not just that though. You can use a cake drum for the base of a cake. Why would I do that? If I was building a 3-tier cake and the cake is towering down, I need something solid to absorb the towering weight, especially when it is underneath the cake. Because if the bottom of your cake doesn't have a solid thing to absorb the weight, it means your cake can give way, which will split, if that makes sense. So that is the use of cake boards and cake drums in cake making. Now, cake drums for display surface, back to Thapeter's question. Does a cake drum or cake board have to be larger than the cake? It depends. For me, because of the handling of the cake, I need the space so I can handle, lift the cake, move it around. So it kind of makes sense to have the board wider than the cake. Do you have to? I don't think so, not necessarily. You can have a small surface area where the cake is displayed. But I think the guidance for having a cake board is it should be about 3 inches wider than the cake. That's the guidance. I can't remember. It was actually my first cake tutor who passed that as a tip. It's not very strict, but if you want a cake board to be under your cake, at least it should be 3 inches wider than your cake. The other reason sometimes why a cake board is supposed to be wider is because if your cake board has other elements, because some cake boards you can do fondant decorations and sometimes they hold extra decorations. You want to make sure that there is room for those decorations as well as room to be able to handle the cake without interfering with the decorations. So all of those things do influence decision making about the size of a cake board. So for instance, I have a cake here that is 6 inch. I've obviously carved it, so it is bordering on, let's say, 5 inch with a base of, let's say, 4 to 3.5 inches here. Now, do I need a wider cake board like this? No. But the reason why I'm going to be using a wider cake board, and this is not going to be the final display surface, by the way. The reason why I probably will settle for a cake board, this is a drum, this is a card, but the board is probably going to be an 8-inch board or drum on which this cake is going to be seated. The reason why I will use that is simply because I need the cake to sit somewhere where I can have the soil that I'm trying to create, plus the extra elements that go on the cake. Does that make sense? So that is something to think about when you are going to yeah. So Lollipop was saying you didn't know there was Lollipop, we learn something new every day. The cake I think the subject, when it comes to the subject of cake decorating, the terms have been muddled up a little bit, because there's a distinction between people who are buying cake and people who actually make cake. And with the insurgence of people who make cake, much of us, I would say, learn about the artistry of cake decoration, and the rest is just extra to us. So unless you are really interested, if I wasn't teaching the subject of cake making, I probably will move along also. So it's neither here nor there, but yeah, taking the time to understand the different tools and the different materials that are engaged in cake making makes a whole difference. Because if I go online, I have to know the difference between a foil cake card and a foil covered cake drum. Because if when you go to the website to order materials for your cake, you have to know the difference, because otherwise you'll end up buying the wrong thing. And I hope that kind of makes sense. That said, let's talk to Amber, who is asking how she can transition to running her cake as a business. Amber, congratulations. Entertaining the idea of even trying to take something that you are doing now into a business is a huge step. Even the thought of entertaining it enough is huge. So for that, congratulations are in order for you. With that said, Amber, I will have a few questions to ask you before I even pass you any tips. Where are you in your cake decorating journey? And I ask that because some people are coming out of pastry school. They went to school as part of what life is requiring of them. And now they finish, they're like, I know how to bake or make pastries, but I only learned it because I was obliged to. Now that I have this skill, do I do something with it? And there happens the question, should I run a business from it? Or you are typically that person who developed the skill on the side, growing up doing it for a very long time, or catching up with yourself somewhere along the way through life. And now you're like, okay, I think I'm very confident about this, and I really want to transition into making it a business. Where are you in your journey? Because trust me, we all want to run businesses, but I can tell you for nothing that even standing here, making cakes and trying to teach on the subject, loving cakes, making cakes is not the same as running a business. Running a business requires a complete different set of skills, and you will find out very quickly that the ideas you have about wanting to run a cake business is not as fun as making cakes, okay? And I know that. That said, I do not want to discourage you from pursuing your journey. I want to be able to support you appropriately with any tips or information I may have to support you. That said, from the ground up, if you're just a beginner who, no, not because you're asking the question, I'm going to assume that you've built up your skill to a very good level where you feel confident that you can run a business on it. I don't know where your location is. Normally, I am unable to give advice about the laws surrounding baking and decorating businesses. The reason being, legislation in the US varies differently from the UK laws surrounding food regulation and practices. So as a result, knowing where you are might inform what I can give you. But if you're in the UK, let me know. And if you're in the US, I would say I'm unable to give you any tips on how to establish as a cottage sort of baker, if you like. And that is because even from state to state, your rules are different. So if you're in the US, I will say find a US based baker. Station Bakery. She is US based, and she gives everyday practical advice about the cottage laws and how she was even able to establish herself, go follow her, find out about what the rules are over there on how to get your license and your registration before you start baking as a business. And I think that is the first thing you have to do. But before you get to registering, on the back end, I can give you some pointers on what you really need to hunker down and do. Before you even decide on a business name, you'll find out that customers do not even care about your business name as long as you can give them a cake they can afford. So to start by, before you even get to registering your business, there are a few things you should do, which is that you should have a catalog of images of your work up until this point, right? Because you have to start from somewhere. So if you have already started making cakes and you're sharing with family and friends and all of that, have a very nice collected catalog of images. Now, how do you create that? We have so many resources and outlets where you can catalog these images, from Canva to even using your Facebook forum as a place to catalog these images. That is simply because when you're starting out, people want to see what you can produce. You want to use that as a touch point to express to people what you are able to do. And by being able to create these images, I'm not talking super edited images, I'm talking cake photos that you have made yourself. Keep them organized so that when people ask you for orders, you can send it to them and say, look, this is my work, just so that people have a visual of what to expect from you. With that said, if you already have images from family and friends, as in cakes you've made from family and friends, here's one good tip to kind of sharpen or build some muscle in the game a little bit. Try making cakes for people outside of that core group of people. We're talking maybe your manager or people who are inclined to not give you, who are not inclined to just sing your praise because they like you, right? So if you have a manager or somebody on the scene that you think whose opinion you respect, find good reason to make a cake for them and let them know that you're seeking their opinion. Now, I'm not talking about just a harsh criticism of you, but opinions that are constructive. So even if they come back to you and say to you, oh, you can improve here or improve, don't take it personal, especially if you've been used to family members telling you how great your cakes are. Remember, food is very different to everybody. The subject of food being good, from taste to everything else in between, is very subjective. To succeed in the business of cake making, even after making it for almost 10 years and counting, and also being a person who admittedly likes to make cake. I love the science of cakes. I develop my own recipes. There are things I love about cakes that makes me feel like, oh, I'm on top of the world. But trust me, I never feel great about myself until a cake is eaten and feedback comes back. Until the feedback comes, everything I have done is zero. And that is important because you always have to put the customer preference first. There are some customers that are impossible to impress, and that is okay. Make a note of that and keep it pushing. But on the back end, you have to have different collections of people, from the family members who will sing your praise even when you are failing, to the managers who would give you constructive criticism and hold back even when they want to sing your praise, because that will put you forward in the game. That will teach you how to be able to deliver perfection without feeling that you should get ahead of yourself or you should be on top of the world, right? That will give you a measure of serving the customer and being able to hold your standards. So that is important. So if at this point, even wanting to run a business, if you haven't exercised the muscle of serving people outside of your core group of people, as in family and friends, go do that, because that's also part of the journey. Then whilst you are doing that, start thinking about how you want to be represented as a business. Do you have a business contact? If you have a personal contact, don't make the mistake of giving your personal contact out, because by the time you transition to be a business, you will be forced to change it, right? So my tip here will be, consider your social media outlet that will eventually transition to a business and use that as a contact form. I learned the hard way that giving your personal number when you're starting is a huge mistake, because yes, eventually you will transition, but it is going to cost you, it is going to make you lose sleep. And at the beginning, it will also stop you from creating a distinction between your personal space and the business. Do you see what I'm saying? So these are just small things that Amber, you can do. So Amber, if you're still with us, come back to the chat and let us know if some of the questions I've asked, where your location is, whether you're based in the UK or US, and where your journey is so far. Let us know in the chat so that I can pass you some more tips. But I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information. I don't want to feel like I'm talking to a wall. So I'm going to leave it as that. But if you are over here already and you found some of these tips useful, let us know what you think already. Okay? Soul Shine for Jesus. Thank you. Soul Shine for Jesus. Where are you joining us from? It's nice to be able to wear the Jesus badge so loud and proud. Thank you for being here. And whilst we're at it, can I make a polite request that do like our video? Hopefully you found some value. I know I felt like I'm talking to myself, but I hope you have found some values in the video as well. So do like our video and register your interest here. There is 11 likes. There's 21 people already in the chat. So come on, let's get a move on the chat and let's keep it pushing. I won't be here any longer than I need to. We have already carved the pot here. So I am going to go and decide what else we need to do. But whether we want to finish this in ganache or fondant, a little part of me is like, we could do this as a fondant cake. Yeah, a little part of me is like, yeah, we could do that because it will be easy to get this as a fondant cake, but Tapeta considers it a ganache cake. We could do both. We could do the ganache covering and also do the a bit of fondant. I think I am considering actually fresh flowers for this one. Not a lot of fresh flowers, because the idea of this cake is to do the pot and just with a small selection of flowers so that we can see what that looks like, you know. So okay, all right, Amber, you are in the UK. Okay, so that is in my territory, so I think I can give you some pointers. But Amber, where are you on your journey? How long have you been a baker for? What's your experience about baking? Because that is still important. Because if you are already baking, I think you would relate to some of the tips I have already given. You would have already experienced what it feels like to give cakes to people, and the fact that you're considering running a business tells me you have received enough feedback from people around you that encourages you. So my question here is that what is stopping you? Is it that you are just looking to get tips? How far are you from your journey? Have you already started? Like at this point, you probably would have made cakes for your family and edging out of your comfort zone. So where are you? Because even from the part where you register your business with your local council and do all the things and the training, the information I was giving you prior are the things that should set up long before you come to even registering. Because by the time you register your business, it doesn't necessarily mean that your business is about to take off and you're off to the races, because you still have to build your reputation. But reputation building is long before you come to registration, because reputation building is set in the selection of images you may collect, and the images don't happen by themselves. They come from collecting and building your skill. And then as a result, also determine for yourself what kind of things you want to do. I mean, just being a baker and decorator, for instance, I make all sorts of cakes. I decorate all sorts. I don't like drip cakes. I don't. But for customer needs, if I was running a bakery style business, I would have to make drip cakes, right? But I also, as much as I love sculpted cakes, I know the purchase market and customer base is not very wide. It's very niche because people don't want to spend a lot these days. Things are hard. And this is an unwanted luxury. Some people would pay an arm and a leg for it. Some people are like, no, I just want a cake that costs £50. I am not mad about either. But determining who you want to serve long before you register your business will be important to avoiding the disappointment and the confusion when the business is already in the running. I hope that kind of makes sense. Okay, Amber's been a baker for around a year or more. The thing stopping me is that I think I need more tips. And Amber, get out of that, okay? Here's a tip for you, Amber. Running a business takes a lot of steps by the time you get to running the business. So what does it look like trying to run a business, a baking business? First of all, you register with the local council. But before you come to registering with the local council is sort of the validation you need. But registering with them doesn't necessarily mean the day you call them, the registration happens. In fact, their recommendation is that you let them know 28 days before you start trading. But when you contact your council, chances are they are going to put you on a waiting list until they have an EHO to come out. The EHO is what is the environmental health officer. They are the professionals who are tasked with the responsibility of assessing your environment and checking and inspecting your working practices and ensuring that you are compliant. Okay, and those are the EHO. But that doesn't necessarily mean, say, if I decided that I'm going to start my business by the end of March, technically I should let them know by the end of February so that there is 28 days ahead. But chances are the EHO is not going to come within the next 3 months. Sometimes, depending on what their work status is, they can come back 6 months to 9 months. Does that mean you can't trade? No. As long as you have told them you intend to start trading and they come back to you and say, we have heard and somebody will be out in touch, you can start trading. But before you start trading, it might help to undertake some very important things like your training manual, your food safety, your allergen training. All of these things are, now that I'm talking about it, I think I should create a sort of pathway that is downloadable to see where you start till where you end up to avoid the confusion. So my thing is, if you have already started baking for a year and you are confident in your skill, sometimes fear will keep you in the notion that you need more practice. Is it bad to practice more? No. But if you're not careful, you're going to hang on to practicing and you never go anywhere. The truth is, the experience is in the doing. What you practice long before you come to running a business is going to be completely different. I'll tell you why. Because customer need is going to force you out of your skill sometimes, right? Imagine you practice on, say, heart-shaped cakes with piping techniques. Then boom, a customer shows up and tells you, I want you to make me a kitten-looking cake. You have two options: to tell them, hello, I don't make kitten cakes, or you're going to go, I will make that. And you're going to try and make that as long as it doesn't look horrid. Okay? My point is, it's a good thing to imagine you want to practice, but it's also realistic to consider how much practice you've done in a year and measure that by what is achievable and attainable in business. Do you feel the fact that you are even considering the idea of a business here tells me that you have a certain level of skill that can produce a cake? Does that mean you're going to succeed firsthand? No. I think for you, you might fall in the category of people who might even struggle. Pardon the assumption, but you might fall in the category of people who might struggle with pricing. So at this point, I would say, if I was to sort of imagine where you should be practicing, you should be practicing at getting some confidence with your pricing, other than trying to practice just for the sake of pricing. But I hope the tips are useful. and people's opinions helpful, but not necessary for running a business. If you want to wait for the opinions to come, you will never move forward, Amber. Okay, so Amber, go do the thing you have to. I think at this point I should stop talking and say, Amber, get a move on, go do the thing and come back and tell us how you are how you are finding it. But best of all, define the smallest thing you want to achieve right now and go and do that first. Okay, Amber, good luck, and come tell us more. If you want to stick around, join the community here. And if you have further questions, come back and ask them. And hopefully not just myself, but everybody in the chat can give you some pointers on how to succeed at running a business. But otherwise, good luck, and I wish you well. That said, people, our carved cake is done here. We are already seeing what the pot is going to look like. Okay, so on our next live back, we are going to try and cover this cake with the detail, create the soil, put it on the fondant, and then consider putting the flowers, and then yeah, we'll have our flower pot cake. So join us on our next live, which will be tomorrow. It will be about 3 p.m. UK time. If it's any earlier, I'll update the community post. Otherwise, thank you for being here with me and taking your time out of your day to be here. I'll see you on my next live. Tapeta, Lollipop, Amber, our friend, Something for Christ, is it? All of you who've been here today, thank you. I sincerely appreciate your time. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Please do support the channel, and do consider liking the video. And I'll see you in my next video.